Hey everyone, it's another episode of NFL in London. This time, NFL is actually in London. We've got a big game coming up. I don't know how big it's going to be, but it's week 6. Week 6 already, almost a third of the way through the season.
And I just feel like you're going to say that every single week 8. It's week 9. I can't believe it's week 10.
Well,
it's like,
can you believe it, folks?
you know, it's all based on like if you're 1-4, you're probably like, yeah, it feels like week 6. If you're a Ravens fan, I'm sure it definitely feels. You're not like, you know what, fuck this season, let it finish quicker.
Yeah. Well, Jets fans as well, but 0-5. I think the one thing that struck me
Jets fans are used to it. Jets fans are used to it.
Yeah,
they'll be fine.
The one thing that struck me this season has been the kicking game and the potential injuries for kickers. I mean, the kicking game, the receiving game has changed a lot, but you're seeing kickers getting injured. You're seeing guys getting knocked into and a lot of block kicks.
Yeah,
I don't know how good that's actually going to be for everything, but it does seem to be one of the things of the rule changes that, yeah, sure, it's exciting, but you're also seeing kickers getting, probably not anticipating they're going to get smoked as much as they are.
Well, it's also because it's one injury that you never expect, and it's one injury you cannot replace. You can't just pick up a kicker off the waiver who's sitting at home, Like, sure, he might come in, he might be all right for a game, Like the Bills did it with Matt Prater, and they're going to have to make a decision when Tyler Bass comes back, and you're like, but for example, the Colts, who their kicker's out for the season now, he's one of the better kickers in the league. Schrader? Was it Schrader? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So he's out, and now if you're the Colts, like having just that kicker who can also bomb one from like 59 at the half to give you those extra 3 points, like that's the stuff that's gonna make basically take you from making the playoffs to not. Is having a kicker who they can just shot it. It's like 63 yards. Yeah, go hit it, and just like 10 yards clear.
Well, it does make a big difference. You look at, like, I've got Chase McLaughlin. I've had him in my fantasy, but he's a guy that just can really bomb it. And when you've got the team like the Buccaneers who are keeping it close in so many games, the kicker is so important. As to your point, getting your guy smoked, it's like you're not just going to find somebody around, unless you're starting looking and trying to grab a random Aussie off the street. So,
like an Adam Sandler movie.
It's almost what it seems like now. It feels like there will be like this, Cinderella story of a kicker being called up and, the guy's just been sitting at home, but he can boot the ball like no one else.
I'll tell you what. So speaking of Adam Sandler, it's the perfect segue into the Giants game with Cam Scatterboo, who feels like he's a character out of a Adam Sandler film from like Billy Madison.
He does. Him and Jackson
Dart.
Scatterboo.
It's Scatterboo.
Scatterboo. They both seem like they're aggressively chasing down CTE. The way that they smash into things, it's like, guys, have you not seen what happens? A good game. Philadelphia looked, we'd always talked about how Philadelphia has looked like, maybe not, sort of a shell of them former selves. And in that game, the Giants were really hustling on it. Philadelphia didn't really have an answer for them. Scatterboo, who I've gotten fantasy points, got me 31 fantasy points. That was a good day. But good for the Giants. When there was the line went up to 7.5, and you're like, okay, I don't know, that's a lot. But the Giants seem to get blown out, and they really put the pressure on Philly in this game.
It's kind of like, I think Eagles fans, even though when they were like 3-0, 4-0, they're kind of like, it's not that pretty. It's looking pretty ugly, some of the wins. Kind of in the way Buffalo fans have felt. And then last week, they each got their first loss, and now you think, okay, is this the bounce back game? We got the loss out of us, wake us up. And something is wrong with this team. Like there's a disconnect with Jalen Hurts and the receivers. Saquon started out really good in this game, but then like basically has disappeared throughout Something is definitely wrong. And it kind of reminds you of that Philly team from a couple of years ago when they started off like 12-0 or something like that. Yeah. And then they just went into the ultimate funk that got them smoked in the playoffs. And I don't know if it's like a connection thing with Jalen Hurts, because A.J. Brown looks like the most miserable man on earth. Like after every, they're talking about like, players meeting that he wasn't even part of. And there's all this kind of like, and to me, it's a mess. And Sirianni's got to get a hold of it, because this wasn't just a loss. Like this is a team you have dominated for like 7 straight, 10 straight games almost. And then to come out and get doubled at home. What was it? No, it was in New York. It was in Philly. Was it? No.
It was in Philly.
It was in Philly.
Yeah, I think it was in Philly.
They get dummied like that at home against
a
rookie
it was in New
quarterback.
York. It was in New York. That's right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Rookie doesn't really matter. Rookie quarterback, rookie running back, without Malik Neighbors, and they doubled you with that defense. To me, this is Philly could just this is either the game that wakes you up, or this is a free fall that we might see this Philly team maybe implode. I don't really know, but to me, it's just Scottibo's great. Like every player
Yeah.
in the league, every fan is like, I wish we had him. Kind of like the
Yeah.
old Mike Allstott. We haven't had a Mike Allstott in a while, and it feels like we finally got one.
Yeah, he's fun. A lot of the players love him, and he was explosive. I think to me that the really thing to watch in that was that New York front defensive line was just relentless. From Burns, you got three different playmakers there that are just chasing and
Yeah.
haranguing him all day. And that's what you need to keep your team in it when you have a defense that is just shutting down the run, keeping Saquon in check, and just terrorizing the quarterback. Hurts making boneheaded plays because he was just, under pressure the whole time. Even when he does find, a little bit of running room, they're on him. So it was a good victory for them. And, Philadelphia now with the second loss has to start looking at things. And, you've got Washington and, even Dallas thinking, hell, we might actually have a chance in this division.
Yeah.
And so it does open it up, and it's good for everyone. Let's get into our first games because the NFL is in London this week, and a lot of people getting to the celebrations. There's lots of players in towns, players that you didn't even know were players. Apparently, Mark Sanchez, he might be making an appearance for the old Jets. I don't know. We go into Denver.
He's going to use his one phone call. He's going to use his one phone call.
Yeah, he is going to come. Hey guys, I'm there.
To call in.
Do you guys? You guys know where I can get any pepper spray? Denver is, a couple close games away from being 5-0. Denver is 7-point favorites over a New York Jets team who is 0-5. The only 0-5 team there is in the league. Tennessee can breathe a sigh of relief after getting their win last week. But we have another London game. It's Tottenham. Denver 7-point favorites. 43.5 is the over-under. I mean, Justin Fields and the Jets. I mean, is it time, that you start looking at trading Breece Hall, starting to trade off the pieces here? Because it doesn't look like, the coach could get fired. And a lot of the players, you've got some talent here. Maybe it's time to get rid of some of these guys and start getting your draft potential up for next year. Does New York Giants, the Jets, have a chance at home?
But it's not like the Jets haven't been bad for like a decade. Now, they've had the top pick. They had the number 2 pick. They took Zach Wilson. They had Sam Darnold, who now looks like an MVP in Seattle. They drafted Geno. Yeah. They've had the picks. It's like the tanking doesn't really do them anything because they'll take the losses will take care of themselves, it feels like, when you're watching the Jets. They don't need any help in tanking. They can just do it themselves. And to me, this is the worst type of matchup. You're coming up against a Broncos defense that's going to – the only guy you have on offense that can do anything is Garrett Wilson, who's probably going to be mirrored by Surtain. It's going to be taken out of the game. So – to me, I don't know where the Jets are going to get any offense. The only thing I like for me from a betting perspective is I'm betting Breece Hall over receiving yards. He hit it for me last week. Again, it's 27 yards. The Broncos have given up. Every game the running back has hit their number on the over under for receiving yards. They give it up because again they're going to be relentless. There's going to be some quick dump offs. But I just don't see any way that they're competitive. I think the way J.K. Dobbins is looking, that they found this number 1, as long as that defense can smother and keep Fields, I don't see Fields having a big passing game at all this week. I think it's going to be rough, and I think it's going to be a beatdown, to be honest with you. So I'll go with the Broncos to win 24-7.
I got a 24-10, and I don't know how they get the 10. Maybe special teams, but again, as we know, London games historically low in terms of playing. Nobody wants to get injured. Sean Payton got there pretty much after their loss last week. So, I mean, I feel like they're going to be more motivated. The Jets have been here before, but this is still there's no sunshine in this game for them. There's nothing on the horizon, and maybe you start trading off pieces because when you look at the Chiefs, who Patrick Mahomes is their number 1 rusher, why wouldn't you trade everything for Breece Hall? Why wouldn't you try to get that guy on your team instead of waiting for Kareem Hunt to suddenly blossom when he doesn't have that explosive legs anymore? Do you start looking at getting rid of some of these pieces because you're not going to miraculously turn this around?
And you're not going to pay Breece Hall, right? You've already paid Garrett Wilson. You paid Sauce Gardner, and you're not getting that much out of Sauce. Garrett Wilson still, to me, is their best player. This team's a mess, and I don't know how Aaron Glenn fixes it. The defense is terrible. They got destroyed last week. I just don't see any way it's competitive.
Let's talk about another deplorable team who traded away their best quarterback. Cleveland are 1-4, and they're heading into Pittsburgh, who are 3-1. Pittsburgh 5-point favorites. To me, the big story here, it's 38.5 the over/under. The NFL really done Cleveland dirty because Pittsburgh is coming off a bye after an international game, and Cleveland has to come from a loss immediately back play the next week. No time off, no
On the
bye,
road.
and on
On
the
the
road.
road.
And you got to play a road game in Pittsburgh against the division rival. Pittsburgh 5-point favorites in this one. Obviously you've got Dylan Gabriel in for the Browns, who did not look good. First game he's got to
I
play in
mean,
London.
I think he looked okay. I think I would say about Dylan Gabriel is the thing that worried me is he does not look like a guy who can push it down the field. He looks small
Mm-hmm.
out there. He is small. He looks small. He was just dumping it off everywhere. So I kind of like one of the bets I David Njoku. It was just feeding. He was just looking for tight ends. He was feeding
Yeah.
David Njoku all day. He was feeding it to his running backs because again, he's not big enough. He's kind of still worried about the line collapsing. He's not very fast. But to me, it's just this is like you said, with the time difference, the way Rodgers is playing, I think he's going to find it tough though. I think this game's going to be close. I think
Yeah.
just because that defense alone, we've seen it with the Browns. Even when they were able to really disrupt Minnesota last week. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that no matter who they play, that defense is going to make it life hell for the quarterback. And the way we've seen Aaron Rodgers just kind of throwing it away quickly, he doesn't want to
Yeah.
get hit. Gainwell, they're not going to be able to run that well, even if it's Gainwell or Warren. So I'm going to go with the Steelers to win, but 23-20. I think it's going to be a close one.
That's the exact score I've got, actually, 23-20 as well. It's just going to be tough. And as you say, Pittsburgh's defense is starting to find their motivation, but it's not the dominance, I think, that we thought having a TJ Watt-led defense. Rodgers, as we know, has that quick ability where he can get rid of the ball. I think Judkins is also going to have, because Pittsburgh struggled against the run as well. So I think Judkins is going to have a good game. Just keep feeding it to him. And Njoku, as you say, maybe it's something that Cleveland maybe should look to trade because he's sort of the best guy that they've got. And, you got to start getting some trade value.
No, but
not Judkins, out of Njoku. Trade Njoku.
Oh, Njoku. Yeah.
Someone who could use a tight end. So, 23-20. Let's head into Indianapolis, into the Dome, where the Colts are 4-1, and they're hosting a Arizona team that's really trying to figure stuff out after taking a loss, having the lead, and then blowing it.
No,
Cardinals are 2-3.
That was an insult to losses. That was an abomination how they lost that game. To have the guy drop the ball and then to get an interception that gets turned into a touchdown for the offense, it was mind blowing. And then watching that video of Kyler Murray taking the helmet or the snap to the face, almost giving him a concussion. It looks like
that should have been on Pornhub.
I mean, honestly, we've been talking about this for weeks. Where it's just like I just don't see it with Kyler Murray anymore. It's been how many years now? What are we in year 6, year 7, and this is still happening. You got Trey McBride. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. You got
who's starting to come into it now.
Defense. You're the number 1 pick overall. You should be putting this team on your back. Again, he doesn't rush a lot anymore. To me, this is just Daniel Jones is the better quarterback. Daniel Jones has Jonathan Taylor is the better running back. They have the better defense. They're at home. The kicking might come into play, and it could just be something that messes with the Colts early on when they go for field goals. So you might see them go for it on 4th down a bit more. But to me, the Colts are just kind of a fun team, and I just don't see it kind of letting up. I don't even know if Kyler Murray. They say he might even be injured. He might not even play. We don't know what's going on. But I'm gonna go 27-17 for the Colts. To me, they're just right now looking like a real surprise team in the NFL, and a kind of a fun one.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor is for fantasy owners has just been a boon to everyone. He's been playing really well. I think it is desperation time for the Cardinals in this one. And because they're in a dome, I could see them actually keeping it a bit closer. Although the running game, you sort of go, what the hell are you doing with your running game now? But Murray has to get this together. I think the Colts, the only way you're going to beat them is with the wide receiver. And Marvin Harrison's starting to gel a bit more. So I could see them. I've got it 30-28 for the Colts. I've got Arizona just covering this one. I think it's going to be a lot of points in it, though. I think Arizona has to play filthy in this one. They have to go all out because, to go 2-4, especially in that division, is just going to really sap all your energy and juices out of you for going, what's our motivation? What are we doing here? So I've got a close one in this one. At the start of the season, if you would have said to everyone, Baltimore is going to be 1-4 heading into week 6, you'd be, come on. But they are, and they're looking woeful. They're one of the worst defenses, whereas the Rams are blossoming. Our Rams are 3-2, 7.5-point favorites against the 1-4 Baltimore Ravens, 45 points. Over under, the weather will be miserable probably in Baltimore, but it's more the injuries. The injury fairy has touched most of the team. Lamar being out, lots of the defense being out. They just don't seem to have any zip. Does Baltimore have any motivation in this game, or is it just as an easy trample for the Rams?
So I guess it's almost like one of those pride matches, right? Like how much pride do you have? Because especially
Yeah,
after
at
what,
home.
giving up 41 to the Texans, who basically all season haven't been able to move the ball on anybody, you know. And we
Yeah,
watching Derrick Henry, who, you know, that week one against Buffalo looked like he was this guy who could never age. In the last couple of weeks now, he's done pretty much nothing. This is
yeah.
like a Rams team that to me is just way better than that Texans team. So I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to, you know, weather permitting, walk up and down the field. Puka Nakua's line is 96.5. Vegas can't find
Yeah,
a number high enough that he's not
yeah.
just going to smash. His receptions are 8.5. So 9 receptions. I've never seen it really that high for a guy. And he usually hits that by half. I don't see any way the Ravens can really stop this. I feel like this is just a season, like one of those seasons out of like a, you know, out of a horror movie for them. And
Yeah.
it could cost. Does it cost John Harbaugh his job? Like, is it this thing where it implodes so much, or does when Lamar comes back, they end up winning like 8 straight? Maybe sneak
Yeah.
into the playoffs, have that last game of the season mean it. But I don't see any chance they win this game, especially how the Rams have kind of botched the last couple games. You know, really not when they could have won. They've kind of given away games. And to me, I think they get themselves right. And I think, again, bet Puka Nakua until he doesn't do it, because he's been incredible. I'm going Rams, Ravens 20.
Yeah, I mean, and trading away sort of one of your pass rushers to the Chargers is not a good sign as well. So I'm with you on this one. I think it's going to be all hands on deck, but it's what can you do against a Rams team that Matt Stafford is looking good. He's about to, I think, pass Dan Marino in terms of passing yards. The motivation is there. He's just chucking that ball around. So I'm with you. I've got it 26-13. I can't see Baltimore really mustering anything. Maybe the Rams take the foot off the gas once they start building a big lead. You know, don't want to get injured. But I think the weather will play a bit of a part in that one. 26-13. Big game. Jacksonville are 4-1, and they put on a big win against the Chiefs last week. They're 1-point favorites over a Seattle team who has been running and stopping the run, and they're 3-2. Tough loss to Baker Mayfield. 45 points is the over/under. The Jacksonville versus the Rams game is actually going to look like a pretty good game when it comes to London. But Jacksonville
Yeah,
at home can go
definitely.
5-1 and keep them on pace with Indianapolis in a division we thought would be a dumpster fire, but not so much of a fire anymore. How do
No,
you like Seattle's chances going into Jacksonville, where Liam Cohen seems to have gotten his team together?
yeah, I like Seattle here. I think this is a good matchup for me. I think the Jags, again, even with that game, the way, you know, Trevor Lawrence, they found just a way to win. You know, pick six
Yeah,
last game, then that double fall down to get a touchdown, which almost never happens to the Chiefs. The Chiefs actually are getting Chiefs losses thrown on them
yeah,
every single week, and they're actually, to me, I think they look scarier than they've looked in years. Weirdly, even though they're
yeah.
2-3. To me, Seattle. I think Sam Darnold's been great. I think a lot of people thought, oh, was it Kevin O'Connell? Was he the guy in Minnesota that was able to kind of keep him as this? That was the only reason he was going to kind of go back to being Jets Darnold. But he's been great. Jackson Smith-Njigba, another guy you bet on every week almost. He will get you your yards. He will get you your
Hmm.
catches. He's just unstoppable, unguardable. They got that two-headed monster in Walker and Charbonnet. And I think the Jags, even though they are 5-1, they don't. I'm still not like, oh wow, no, this is the year Trevor Lawrence has figured it out. He's still kind of
Yeah.
messy, making mistakes. He had that great pass to Brian Thomas in the game against the Chiefs. But to me, I think again the Jags have kind of gotten a couple sneaky ones, and I think that Mike McDonald defense is really going to make it hard on them. They're not going to be able to kind of run or pass like they wanted. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks to win this. Little, I guess it's an upset. I'm going to go 24-20. Seahawks win.
Yeah, Jags are favored by one, but I'm with you on this one. Getting the running going. I mean, yeah, Jacksonville still has a pretty stout front to stop a lot of things and generate some pressure, but Seattle to me is just playing like the better team right now. I'm surprised that maybe Cooper Kupp is aging a bit, and maybe they haven't got him involved as much. He doesn't seem to find as much separation as he used to. So
It's
interesting
over.
there, but I'm interested in Seattle in this one, winning it. I've got it 27-24. I think it could come down to a field goal. I think it's going to be a nail-biter, real tough one. Head into Carolina, where Carolina's 2-3. Dallas, 2-1. Dallas, 3.5-point favorites. 49.5 is the over-under. Rico Dowdle lit up in fantasy last week. Former, gets to face his old team. Will he have success moving the chains? Or Bryce Young, will he be able to move it? Carolina at home, 49.5 over/under. So a lot of points being scored in this game. Obviously they've been playing. Dak has been trying to motivate themselves. Tough one against the Packers. But this one, is Carolina going to be giving them a pain in the ass, or do you think Dallas can cover this one?
I mean, I think this is a nice bet. I think I might bet this Cowboys -3. I think the Panthers beat Miami last week, and Miami's been terrible. I think there's a
Hmm.
team who's given up on their coach, and we've seen the Panthers to just completely. You can't trust them to do anything offensively. They can't get. They got Rico Dowdle did on this game. It's kind of a revenge game. I played him in two of my fantasy leagues. It was fantastic. So I'm all
Nice.
for Rico Dowdle, but I just think the Cowboys, the way Dak's playing, and I think the way we're watching Bryce Young play, he can't get anything going. The fact that you needed 200 yards from your running back last week just to pull off this win against Miami says everything. I think the Cowboys can kind of have their way with them, kind of get a big lead where Rico Dowdle won't even really be a factor, and then you're gonna have to
Yeah.
depend on Bryce Young, and then it's over. I think, and then you can kind of just watch the implode begin. So I think the Cowboys lay a beat down on the Panthers because I think the Cowboys are playing a bit better than anyone expected. George Pickens looks good, and so I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win 30-20.
Yeah, I got Dallas in this one as well. This one is sort of a get-right game. Who cares about Rico Dowdle and what he's talking about? For Dallas, it's the way that Dak has been playing, the yards he's been putting up, and his ability to sort of generate some offense. And that defense, trying to keep them in games as well. As you say, once Dallas gets a lead, it's going to be up to Bryce Young, and we know how that goes. So I'm with you. I've got it 26-20. I think Carolina is able to maybe get some stuff going. They've got the home motivation. But when it comes down to it, Dallas is just going to be hungrier in this one, and Jerry's going to be angry. We're going to move into Miami, who again are 1-4 and not looking good, and a Chargers team who's struggling. The offensive line, they've
Mm-hmm.
made some trades, but Chargers are 3-2, 4-point favorites over a 1-4 Miami team. 44.5 is the over/under. Chargers, obviously Justin Herbert has been looking, from how exuberant he was at the start of the season to just looking like an old man
I
now.
mean,
This has been tough on him, but is Miami a get right game for the Chargers to move to 4-2?
I mean, it's hard to blame Justin Herbert when your left tackle goes, your right tackle goes, both of your starting running backs go, and the only guy you could really depend on is 35-year-old receiver. So it's just a bit of a mess. I actually took the bet. One of the bets I took this week was Herbert rushing because I feel like with
Yeah.
all these things out, he's going to be running for his life, and the pocket
Mm-hmm.
collapses, and he's just going to have to make a move. Especially against Miami, it feels like you can do that. I don't know who's this Chargers running back is going to be or how good they're going to be. I think it's
Looks like
probably the
Hassan
practice
Haskins, I
squad.
think.
Yeah, it's like a practice squad guy coming in. Again,
Yeah.
luckily you're going up against the team that let Rico Dowdle run for 200 against you. So that
Yeah.
feels like you got to have a bit of confidence that way. I feel like the Chargers just have to break this cycle, but I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I just think being at home,
Ooh.
I don't really love either team, but I think the Dolphins, especially being embarrassed, blowing that game against Carolina, I think they have to win, kind of to save Mike McDaniel's job. And I think just the injuries are too much on the Chargers. So I think it's going to be kind of a fun game, this one. I'm going to go 24-23 for the Dolphins, kind of a last-second win.
I still think the Chargers are a better team, and Miami is not playing with any sort of conviction. It seems like they all hate each other, and there's no real trust going on. I just think this is for the Chargers. This is the one. They've seen the gameplay. They see what happened, how to beat Miami. I think Hassan Haskins will be the go-to. I could see him getting over 60 yards easily because Miami is just weak against the run. And if they can establish that, give some time for Herbert to start throwing the ball, I think this is the one. Miami is an easy win. I've got it 28-18. Chargers take the victory. We head into our final of the 1 o'clock slate as New England put on a beating on Buffalo last
No,
week.
no, it was
Maybe not a
not
beating,
that.
but
It was
the refs had something to do with it.
squeaked. You say
Squeaky.
squeaked out of victory. Squeaked out of victory.
They're 3-2 though, and they're 3.5-point favorites over a New Orleans team who has been playing plucky. New Orleans 1-4. New Orleans played Buffalo quite tight until it got blown away. But New Orleans 1-4. 46 points is the over/under. New Orleans at home. Drake May though has been playing exceptional football, but New Orleans doesn't go away without a fight. How does New Orleans take on the Patriots at home?
Yeah, this is kind of a fun little sneaky game because I think it's going to be closer. Like the way I saw when the Saints played Buffalo, the Saints can run it on you. The Saints, Rattler's been okay. Like his touchdown to interceptions isn't bad. He's got his first win, so he's kind of got that monkey off his back of that 0-9 start. Is he ever going to get a win? That kind of, and I think that's huge, especially quarterbacks. It's all about confidence. So again, like you said, you got Drake May on the other side. But to me, it's like if you're the Saints, you have to watch that Bills game and just think we have to just stop Stephon Diggs and see who else can
Hmm.
beat us because the Bills couldn't stop Diggs no matter what they did. And I think the Saints, if they're smart, will make Drake May beat you other ways, maybe with his feet, maybe that. But
Yeah,
I think the Pats are still the better team with the better coaching staff, with the better defense. But I think this game is going to be, like you said, plucky. I think the Saints have shown that almost every single game. And even though they beat the Giants, who just beat Philly, so maybe that win against the Giants is a bit more than we gave it credit for a couple weeks
yeah,
ago when we were kind of laughing about it, the way the Giants looked. He was able to kind of, especially against that front defense going at him, Rattler was able to
yeah.
win. So to me, I think this game's close. I'm going to go 20-17 for the Pats to win it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot. I mean, if you look at Shaheed, he had a good game last week. Lave, Rattler's starting to find his guys, and he's got that motivation. He's got that fire in him. I think it'd be a bit more high scoring just because of the way these two teams have been playing, and in the dome. I've got it 28-26 for the Patriots. I think that they'll be able to keep it within the 3.5. But I think it's going to be one of those heartbreaking games for New Orleans. But I could see them really coming at them. It's going to be up to Drake May, which he does have the ability to run it down the field and put it up on you. So yeah, tight game. I've got the New Orleans Saints just to cover it, but New England getting the win. We head into the first of our 4 o'clock games, which is just horrible. Tennessee is 1-4. They're heading into Las Vegas, which is also 1-4.
That's exactly.
4.5 point favorites for Geno. Geno has fallen down through everyone's estimation of what they thought, as the Raiders really suck. And unless Ashton Genty has a weak team to play like the Bears front seven, it's tough for him. He gets stuck behind the line. 41.5 points is the over under. Vegas at home. Cam Ward got his first win, so that's bugs off his back. But is he going to be able to find any motivation against a team where Max Crosby looks to have a sack fest?
Well, to me, this is the biggest question in this game is Gino gonna get benched? Because if he keeps playing the way he's playing, they've been bad. The only thing that's
Mm-hmm.
been kind of keeping this team afloat is Genty. Not having Bowers has been kind of devastating to this offense. We always
Yeah,
knew they weren't a great offense, but to lose Bowers is like literally losing like two arms in a fist fight.
yeah,
To me, the Titans again, they had the worst win of all time. I don't think they're a good team. I think the Raiders at
no,
home are going to use Genty kind of to their advantage and just kind of just ride him all day, make it easy for Geno so he doesn't have to feel like
yeah,
he's got to sling it across the field because he clearly doesn't have the guys to be able to do that. Even last year at Jackson Smith and Jigba, he had better weapons. So to me, I'm going to go with the Raiders to win this. I think they're desperate for a win, especially Pete Carroll is the better coach. And the Titans just needed literally almost like two miracles to happen for them to win that game, maybe three, and they got it. So I just think that's not going to That's not going to make you think like, oh, they're going to take this and move on and use it
yeah.
next week for the win. So I'll go Raiders to win 23-17.
Yeah, I just don't see any way that Tennessee can really get this going. Cam Ward's going to have to run a lot, but he's going to be running, and I think Max Crosby's going to have one, maybe two sacks in this one. He's been just fierce and in the face, and watching him in that Bears game as well. He's finding that separation. So yeah, I think that was a fluky win. I've got Vegas to try to get their second win of the season, 28-20, but I don't see Cam Ward having much success in this one. Big game, everyone's going to want to be watching. San Fran is 4-1. How are they getting this done? As Brock Purdy is out again. Mac Jones looking like Brock Purdy against a Tampa team who is finding wins. They're 4-1 as well, and they're 3-point favorites and a 47.5 over under in this one. Tampa Bay at home. San Fran finds ways though. They find ways to keep themselves in the game. How do you feel about this game? Two 4-1 teams.
I think it's a fun game. I like San Francisco. I like the way Shanahan's been using Mac Jones. I think they're again McCaffrey looks not as explosive as he has over the last couple of years, but he looks like 75-80% of what he's been, which is great considering they're out there throwing it with no weapons out there, no IU, no Pearsall. Hopefully Pearsall comes back and Jennings comes back to give Mac Jones a few more weapons, but he's been just kind of incredible out there. And I think
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm just going to go with who I think is the better coach and the better kind of game planner. And I think, the Bucks who do have a bunch of injuries and I think are having to have a lot of like, Baker Mayfield heroics to kind of winning these games. Godwin's out again, so they're really down to nobody but Mbuka. So it's literally their only weapon with Rashid Shaheed. To me, I just think Shanahan's going to be able to take advantage of that. Robert Saleh is now the defensive coordinator, and he's been really kind of getting this Niners D back to kind of where it was when they went to the Super Bowl. So considering all the losses, I'm going with the Niners. I just kind of like Mac Jones as their quarterback. It's working, and I think
Hmm.
the Bucks are kind of depending on like all these crazy Baker heroics and things, all these crazy endings that they've had. So, but I think that runs out today, and I'm gonna go Niners 27-24 to the Bucks.
I just Baker's heroics keep playing it, and I don't know. I think there's a lot of injuries, and Fred Warner's going to make his life hell. But I still like the Bucks to cover it out. Not to. I like San Fran to cover it, but I like the Bucks to win it. I've got it 26-24. Tight game, defensive game, exciting game. It'll come down to the last couple of minutes. But I just like Tampa Bay at home. I think they'll be motivated here. Head into Green Bay, who's had their week off. They're 14-point favorites over a lowly dirt just suckety Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are 2-3. The Packers are 2-1-1, 14-point favorites. 44 points is the over/under. Packers at home. Cincinnati is brought in the quarterback that was able to beat the Packers, and Joe Flacco, that stunned the Packers earlier when the Browns beat them.
Yeah.
Will he have the same luck against Green Bay again this time?
Ken, what will Packer fans do if you lose to Joe Flacco twice in one season? Is the real question
Draft
of
him.
what I go there. They'll just lose their mind. Again, they're starting him, so they're just letting him just kind of go out there and sing. And behind that offensive line, good luck. I think there's a couple really nice kind of bets I like. I kind of like T. Higgins' bet, which is 41 yards this week.
Yeah.
Considering they say Jamar Chase has a bit under the weather, and the fact that Flacco's going to probably be throwing from behind, throwing all day, 41 seems ludicrously low for someone like T. Higgins. I'm betting that. I think the Packers just are too strong. I think it would be funny if the Bengals won. I think it would be hilarious, but to me, I just think, again, Josh Jacobs has looked good. The Packers are coming off a bye, so they've had extra time to prepare. They've seen Flacco earlier in the season, so at least it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, this is something that's going to happen to them. And it wasn't like he went out there and kind of lit them up anyway. It was kind of a fluky win that
Yeah.
Cleveland did. And I think the Bengals have any chance to win, you're going to have to get fluky. But this could just be one of those, like, you know what? Like Joe Flacco was out there with Jerry Jeudy and, Tillman and this. He's got Chase and Higgins now, so maybe he goes wild. It just throws for like
Yeah.
400 yards. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go that the Packers win 27-17.
Cincinnati cover it. I got it 31-13. I think Packers, having some time off, just explode on them. They've had some issues, that tie against Dallas, being 2-1-1 when you have, Detroit really starting to light it up. I just can't see any ways. Joe, he's a good, he's an old quarterback, but he's still learning that playbook. So
Yeah.
it's a weird kind of situation to put him in, but I can really just see Green Bay stomping this one through. We head into a big game. Detroit 4-1 against a KC team who are 2-. KC is 2.5-point favorites. 52 points is the over/under. But you mentioned earlier, the Chiefs are playing a bit hungry now. Now they're missing some of the running game, but I think that they're getting guys back now as well. And they're at home. You playing at Arrowhead just seems to motivate these guys. It's very difficult to beat them at home, particularly with the coaching. Detroit, on the other hand, playing with lots of energy. They're putting up some points. They're 4-1, but with the Chiefs being favored, is this a fluke, or do you think the Chiefs can win this one at home?
No, I don't think anything's a fluke. I think these are two great teams and I think the Chiefs had just been, those games in the years past, they would have won those games, that Mahomes doesn't throw. And Mahomes has looked great. He's having one of his best years. He might run for like 1,000 yards as well. He's kind of the only reason this team is staying in it, considering who he's thrown to, and he's going to get Rashid Rice back. So this team is going to have weapons, and they can score. The problem is the running game, which, again, doesn't really seem to matter because they're still scoring 28, 30 points every single game, even though they can't run. I like the Chiefs this game. I think there's no way they're going to 2-4, losing two straight primetime games. I think the Lions, the last time they played them, the Lions kind of took this one. And who knows, Dan Campbell, I feel like this could be that Dan Campbell game where he does something crazy. And you're like, why did you do that? And then you gave the Chiefs the opening, and then they go down the field and score a game that makes it 10 points. So I just think the Chiefs have to bounce back, especially defensively. They just haven't looked great. And this could be tricky because, again, you're going up against one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL. So I think this is going to be an absolute shootout. So I'm going to go 33-30 for the Chiefs. winning this.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting game. I can't wait to watch this one. And again, I'm with you on Kansas City here. I think this is, they play like a different beast at home. And Detroit is going to bring everything. They're going to be prepared. They're going to be prepared for the Montgomery and Gibbs coming at them. They're going to be trying to shut down St. Brown, who's been having, again, a wicked season. They do have a lot of tools, so it's going to be getting in the face of the quarterback and just making sure that Goff screws up. So I can see them putting that pressure on, them stepping up, Mahomes doing his trickery. So I've got it 30-26. Kansas City wins, and Detroit takes the L. I head into one of our Monday night games. Buffalo, a 4-1, going against Atlanta, 2-2. Buffalo 4.5-point favorites after that loss to the Pats last week. Atlanta is trying to find their way, but at 2-2, you wonder what way that is. 49.5 as the over. Under means a lot of points in this one. Buffalo at home. Does Atlanta have a chance, or is Buffalo just going to Josh Allen this game?
No, I mean, of course, Atlanta has a chance. The way Buffalo, who we've seen in the past, they can be run on, they can be thrown on. And again, the Falcons have both options. The way Bijan's looked as good as anyone in the NFL, looking like he's kind of taken the mantle as the best running back in football. And Penix had his best game, but I think the fact that Penix isn't as mobile might be beneficial to Buffalo. I think that their defensive line, who got so close to Drake May, getting him down so many times, and he was able to escape, kind of like Josh Allen did, and it really kind of messed them up. But Penix won't be able to kind of do that. I would say if Buffalo would have won last week, I would pick the Falcons to win this game. It would have been like one of those, we're bound to slip up. But I think the slip up last week really kind of gets Buffalo back. They were sloppy with penalties last game. They had like 10 in the first half. It was as ugly as it got. Turnovers. They don't do that. Josh Allen in a dome feels nice. That they're going to get the offense going. James Cook should be able to have a big game because he did not have a great game last week against the Pats. And I think the Bills take care of business. But I think it's going to be a shootout. So I'm going to go 30-23 for the Bills.
Yeah, I just, Buffalo's going to be more motivated in this one. And, playing in that dome, I think is going to, get them excited, have Josh running around quite a bit. But again, I've got Buffalo just to beat them. I think it's when it comes down to Buffalo bringing out this big lead, then relying on Penix to get that ball deep. I think he's going to get in a lot of trouble. So I've got it 33-23. Bills win by 10. Head into our final game, which we all remember these two teams played last year. It was a tipped Hail Mary that sunk Chicago. Chicago were 2-2, coming off a bye. Washington 3-2. Jaden Daniels is back and had a great game last week. Washington 4.5-point favorites at home. 50 points is the over/under. Bears coming off a bye, but will that matter when you've got the running game that Washington has been demonstrating here? McLaurin doubtful, I think, as well, but it's all Jaden Daniels' show. Jaden versus Caleb. Who wins this one?
It's kind of a fun little game. I like the Bears. I think Caleb has looked. I think again, coming off a couple wins, playing better with the bye, having a little bit of extra time, he's got to learn this offense. Because again, I think it was back in the Ben Johnson days, it took Jared Goff a while before he kind of picked it up. There were weeks where in Detroit they were terrible. Like Dan Campbell started off like 0-7 or something like that. They couldn't get anything going. So I think this offense just takes a while. I think Roma Dunze is unbelievable. To me, the Bears should be a guy who's looking for Breece Hall, looking to trade for someone like that, to bring in someone, because I just don't see it with Swift. And I think you're just making it harder on Caleb, having to depend on Swift every week. So, which is going to make it, I think the Commanders can keep this close. I think this is, again, to me, the Commanders just don't have the receivers. Terry McLaurin hasn't looked dynamic. They haven't, Debo's had his moments, but I think Debo's just going to get slower and beaten down as the year goes on. What was his name? Krosky. Sounds like a law firm. The law firm.
Yeah, basically. No, exactly.
Yeah. I think, again, he looked good, and I think he'll be able to run it. I think the fact that this game came down to that hilarious Hail Mary, the Bears are going to want to revenge. They're going to want to be kind of pinned down, feet in. They're ready to go with the bye. I like Caleb with the Dunze to have another big game. It's been dominant this year. So I'm going to go 27-21. 27-21 Bears.
Woo! I got Bears to win. Surprise, surprise. But I've got it 26-24. I think if you look what Ashton Genty did to our, how he ran on us, I think McCroskey Incorporated is going to have a good game as well. But Bears are going to have to learn to shut that down. It's going to be up to the Washington defense, which has been strong up front. But I think Caleb is going to have to find his pause and motivation. The thing that's been bothering me about the Bears has been the penalties. The amount of false starts that we've been doing is just getting annoying. Like, and you can see it on Ben Johnson's face. It's like every damn week, you guys are not learning how to line up in the ball. And it's just been, to me, just frustrating just getting all these penalties. So I think we really got to shut that down because we've been shooting our own selves in the foot. I got the Bears to win it 26-24. That's it, folks, for our picks this week. As many of you know, we're doing an event on Sunday night at the Nordic Bar in Tottenham Court Road in London. There are some tickets up. It's free entry. But we just thought it'd be nice for everyone to have a place to go after the game. They will be open late. There'll be 5 TVs full of NFL in the back bar of the Nordic Bar in Tottenham Court Road. So make sure you go on our website and get those. Folks, thanks a lot for listening. Enjoy week 6. Ryan will be back next week to break down all the games. Thanks for listening.